Yeah, you're in a rough state then. Good week with your friends.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah,
And,
well, yeah. I mean, listen, you gotta have a bit of downtime, which is all good. But of course,
Exactly.
we've got this podcast to run. We've got to be a bit more consistent going forward, anyway.
There's no sunshine without rain, pal.
Exactly. We've got to have a bit of time off. To be fair, with the bird being over, yeah, been taking up a lot of my time, but. Yeah, we're going to be going hard as of next week anyway, especially with the new clips channel. I'm buzzing with that as well.
Yeah, big time.
But bro, like, let's get straight into today, man. There's a lot of stuff that has happened. Of course, the main headline, of course, yesterday was with regard to Lucy Connelly. The much anticipated release of her from prison. And of course, straight away, I mean, at the time of recording this, I think she's expected to be doing an interview very soon. But of course, being released yesterday from HMP Peterborough, her husband has came out and almost like gave a warning, a withering message to Keir Starmer after his wife finally gets freedom. Basically, he said that his wife had coped relatively well behind bars. He revealed the only person who hasn't is our daughter. He also stated that well done for Starmer for making it so difficult for a girl of 12, he jabbed. Let's all give him a pat on the back. It'll be good to have her home. We are thankful for the support. Our focus will now try to be sort out our lives and for my wife to reconnect with our daughter. So yeah, I mean, he's had a bit of a jab there, of course, to Starmer and the justice system. And after everything that happened with Ricky Jones, can you blame them to be outraged? And the family to be outraged about her individual situation?
Yeah, I think her obviously they're very just in their outrage, and it's also the knock-on effect of the Lucy's family as well. As she's got a 12-year-old daughter, I think she also had another child as well who sadly passed away a few years ago. And with that context, you can understand why she was so sort of emotionally charged up around the time of the Southport killings. But I'm glad obviously it's going in the right direction. Obviously sad it happened, but happy it's sort of getting resolved. I think she's going to be a key political figure in the next sort of couple of months. She's already been invited to Parliament, is that correct?
Yeah, that's with Rupert Lowe. He's invited her as like a sort of guest of honor, if you like. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this is going to be buried down anytime soon. She's almost looked like a bit of a martyr in the scheme of things. Completely diabolical situation. Never should have went down. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of support as well. You've seen Richard Tice, of course, go there many times. He said that the situation that she's been treated in prison, this was back in February, was really bad. They were obviously trying to push for her to get early release back then. That was obviously denied. And even Kemi Badenoch as well, like for Conservatives. So it's almost like everyone's pretty unanimous that Lucy Connelly shouldn't have been prisoned for what she had done. And yeah, it's just sort of Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, are kind of brunting this as their sort of political prosecution of these individuals that went to jail for social media tweets. So
I think these were mainly used as fear tactics to stop the riots, because the issue with the riots last summer is they went very much from 0 to 100 very fast.
Yeah.
And in order to kind of like curb that sort of a rapid rise in chaos across the whole country, they use cases like this in order to sort of put a stop of it as soon as possible. And obviously this is why you get these like massive sentencing. They were told that they were going to get lenient sentencing if they pleaded guilty. We know that's obviously not the case. With people like Ricky Jones that were going to trial getting found innocent. And I also think a lot of people who did do similar things to Lucy as well, who went to trial, were also found innocent. It's just the fact that if they can't afford the lawyer, they're going to have to give away 10 months of their life to a corrupt justice system. But I think as well, you're right in saying that she is a bit of a martyr, and I don't know from her perspective, but if I was sort of a political prisoner rather than just a standard prisoner who just done a crime, it almost makes your time worthwhile, right? Because you're doing it out of principle. And the amount of support she's received outside as well, already being, invited to Parliament, I think that's just going to be massively motivating for her. But, as I say, her daughter, 12 years old, wouldn't really understand the sort of consequences of her incarceration. So all she sees is just a mother who isn't present.
Yeah, and for like, as I said, we've said it so many times, and I think everyone said it so many times that it is diabolical in the sense of what she went down for anyway. But yeah, hopefully something good comes out of this. We've seen GoFundMe's. I don't necessarily think it's directly just to her, but all of the sort of political prisoners as well. And Lucy Connelly's case is the famous one, right? I suppose. But for the famous case that Lucy Connelly is, there's hundreds of others that have, of course, been treated in unjust circumstances as well, and you've got to have a lot of sympathy for them. I think Wayne O'Rourke is one of those that I've seen. He's another sort of famousy name. You've of course got Peter Lynch, who unfortunately did take his own life. But yeah, those are the sort of names that you hear, but there is hundreds of others, and some actually, again, I've got to say it, some would have probably been put in jail, rightfully so. Some people may have actually did something. It wasn't everyone was just social media posts. Some might have actually been, fighting and assaulting and all these kind of things. So you're not allowed to do that. But there were a lot of people, and I'm talking hundreds of people that were jailed for social media posts, which is very unjust.
Yeah, and I think with them Southport riots as well, a lot of people who were just simply reporting or attending the protest, not knowing that they were going to be violent or not being part of the violent protest, as in like they were just witnessing it. They were still sort of cordoned into the same group as the violent protesters. They would just put a big label over everyone who went out. And at the time, it really just did feel like if you were against a man killing 3 young children, then the government would jail you. And I really felt shame. I felt a massive amount of shame for this country. I thought, you know what, it's going to be a very hard fight. But I'm getting such a wave of hope with these new protests this year. Because we're actually seeing things happen. We're seeing the Bell Hotel in Epping being closed down now. And we're also seeing things like Kemi, who is pushing for other conservative members to shut these hotels in their constituencies. This is the type of progress that we need. We don't need violence. We need to go through law and order, and we need to do the right processes in order to get these hotels shut down.
Yeah. We're gonna get to that in a bit. But speaking of like Lucy Connelly, and of course what, as you said, jailed after the sort of riots, there's the man. He's back in the headlines again, or the monster, we want to call him, Axel Rudu-Cubana. And again, he's been in the headlines today, and that's because he's won back his privileges, including a TV and a DVD player, to encourage him to behave. This, of course, the triple child killer was in the headlines a month or two ago, where he held boiling water at a guard. And of course, again, he went from sort of basic terms in prison, now back to standard. So I suppose this just shows so much outrage, really. This guy's already, after May, he chucked boiling hot water, which is already a farce in itself. How the hell did he get boiling hot water in the first place? He attacked a guard in May. We're now in August, and now this individual has his TV back in prison and, of course, his DVD player. So the guy's living a life of luxury at this time. And, of course, this has outraged many people with regard to Axel Rudu-Cubana. And, again, it's disastrous. I just don't know how this guy gets so much privileges when we've seen people like Tommy Robinson, and you can't even compare them. You can't even put them in the same sentence, when he was in solitary confinement for 9 months. So they can do stuff like that. But this individual gets his perks back like just a couple of months after throwing boiling hot water at a guard. Make it make sense.
There's a couple of things about that. Like, obviously, this guy has nothing to lose, so he's probably going to do something like this in the future. They can't bribe him for good behavior. At the end of the day, he's going to be staying in that prison his whole life. And it'd be an absolute mockery if he ever gets out, even in 60 or 70 years. And you're right, with a contempt of court charge for Tommy Robinson, he was put in solitary confinement for his own safety. That's what they sort of used as a ploy to get him into solitary confinement. And yet this person who not only killed 3, but severely injured 6-7 more people, or 6-7 more girls, is able to get these sort of privileges back. I think it should be a Guantanamo style kind of cell with nothing in it other than just a toilet to piss in and maybe a concrete slab to sleep on.
Well, it frustrates me because they've shown that they can put you in solitary confinement for 9 months. Now, Tommy again said at the time that, of course, that there is, you're not allowed, I think under the sort of, I think it's Mandela ruling or something like that, you're not allowed to put someone in solitary confinement legally for longer than 28 days. I don't really know the thing, but he was obviously talked about in the podcast round that there was a way around it, and as I said, for his own safety. But as I said, now we're already seeing here, you just in the headline with the DVD player, but this also means now him going to the standard treatment. It means he's now able to spend money in the canteen plus more time out of his cell. So is that going to be heavily monitored? Just 3 months, 4 months after throwing hot water at a bodyguard, he's now allowed to spend more money in the canteen and be out of his cell for a longer period of time. It just makes no sense. I think, you know, if you're not showing any signs of reform, then you should be, you know, in solitary confinement. That's just how it should be. I think the whole prison system in the UK has been broken and has been broken for many, many years. And again, I always look at the United States, even under sort of, you know, Biden. You can talk about the way they've been politically over the last few years prior to Trump, but their prison system has always been very, very strict. There's no leniency there. I don't know if you've ever watched these little prison documentaries from the United States, but it's very, very basic. And you know, child killers, triple child killers, you know, they would probably be on death row in that country. They almost certainly would be. But certainly if they were serving a life sentence, then they wouldn't be having, you know, luxuries and just cutting about willy-nilly, and especially after attacking a guard. They wouldn't be back in sort of general population with all their luxuries back after 3 or 4 months. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of sort of street justice in the United States as well, you know.
Yeah.
That even amongst criminals, there is like a code of ethics that they kind of follow when you're committing crimes against children, especially sort of sexual or murdering children. You know, for their own safety, they will have to be separated from general population. And they will figure out very quickly, you know, what your papers are. That's what they call them, you know, what you're in for. And obviously this being such a high case, his face being plastered all over the news for you know, years, basically. Everyone in that prison system knows who he is, knows what he done. I just don't understand how there's even amongst the criminals in the UK, like who is protecting him in the jail.
Well, I can answer you that question. If you listen to Tommy in the podcast round, I don't know if you listened to a few of his, but he speaks about the Islamification of the prisons in the UK. Now, there's a lot of Islamists, extreme Islamists, that are of course occupying the prisons, and as I said, Tommy speaks about it better, so maybe after the podcast I'll send you the link to watch it. But it's quite eye-opening. But they run the prisons inside, so he would have been like a hero. So he's looked after amongst the other prisoners, because he would have been quickly found his group. If he's in thingy, they would protect him, and then they would sort of keep him with them, because he'd been looked at as a bit of a hero amongst some of the other jihadists that are currently occupying the prisons.
You're right. They definitely do kind of overrun specific prisons. It just shows their sort of over-representation within the criminal justice system as well, because most likely they're sort of offending at higher rates than the native sort of British population. And they're also quite sort of sectarian in the way they sort of formulate their sort of gangs or groups. You know, there's no real outsiders. There's no native people. You know, it's just...
Well, they do. They go about, I mean, because it's such a majority inside the prisons, they go about sort of converting individuals. And if individuals don't convert, then they get a harder time inside prison. Because if you're the majority, you can make it hard for other prisoners, you know? But so a lot of people are kind of forced into converting and being a part of the brotherhood, so to speak. So you get that protection. And if you're a bit of a limp-wristed individual in prison, you know, not everyone you think of. I always had this perception for some weird reason in when I was younger, that if you thought of a murderer, you would think of like this really, when I'm young, this really strong, manly character. But really, they're all, you know, weirdos, freaks that are like couldn't control their emotions, and that's why they're in prison in the first place. So yeah, that perception of a murderer. So these individuals would be easily bullied. And yeah, they're probably looking for comfort and an easy life, so they just find it easier to convert to Islam and be protected. And that's how they, of course, dominate the prison systems. And Axel would be looked as a bit of a hero.
That's right. I think that goes kind of deep into the ideology of Islam as well. It's sort of expansionist, and the whole reason that over here is not to sort of integrate, is to culturally dominate our sort of belief systems and ideology, and as well that's all almost amplified within prisons because it's such a sort of cordoned off area. They have nothing else to do other than to talk and to sort of spend their time networking, I say, within the Islamic community, and also just trying to convert people as well. And I don't know about you, but I've got nothing against gingers, but every time I see like a British convert, he's always ginger with like a ginger beard.
It's so weird. It is. There's a good thing to point out, and people in the comments will probably agree with you. It's always like,
yeah. And again,
you're right.
I don't have anything against. I have ginger friends, but like every single time there's some white kid in a bloody one of the traditional Islamic sheets, he's like, "Assalamu alaikum, brother," and he's just like a ginger kid. I just don't get it.
Yeah, there has to be a study into that. Why is it always the ginger kids that are converting? It's really, 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 really strange. Just on the prison thing as well. Like, have you ever watched a film called Papillon? No, man, you're bad with films. Guys need to get onto Dom in the comments. This guy's never watched any films. You don't even watch Fight Club or anything like that.
No, I've seen Fight Club.
Oh, you've watched Fight Club. I swear I was speaking to you and Jan the other day, or at least Jan. He was like, nothing. He's not watched any good films whatsoever. But Papillon is about, it's a true story on a French. So the French, essentially back in the day, like 1920s or something like that, they used to send their prisoners over to their sort of overland seas, I think the French Guinea or something like that, near towards South America. And as I said, it's a true story on the way that these people were treated. And yeah, they were out of line. They would go into solitary. The first time they were misbehaved, they went into solitary confinement for 2 years in just a hole, right? Just a hole. Right? And just got soup or whatever every day. 2 years, don't speak to anybody. Then if they tried to do something else again, then they would get 5 years in solitary. Then if they did it something thin, then they would of course face the guillotine for the third time. But yeah, no, this is like the story of these guys that were in solitary something for 5 years at a time. And like the story of Papillon, he went 2 years after trying to escape. He tried to escape again, went in for 5 years. And then, so he spent 7 years of his life in solitary, and he managed to, of course, escape for the third time. So he didn't get beheaded, but of course he managed to get his story, and that's why the film's there. But this guy never got broken. But what I'm trying to say is that's a way to deal with these individuals that do heinous acts inside prisons. They should be put into sort of solitary confinement. And I know under the new human rights thing in the world that we live in nowadays, it wouldn't be possible in the UK, but we should certainly have harsher punishments for, one, triple child killers that refuse to behave inside prison. They should be dealt with in a lot of a worse way, you know?
And it's very strange, like this whole kind of European perspective on capital punishment, because, you know, in certain places in the in European Union, like I think Switzerland and maybe Denmark as well, you're allowed to kill yourself legally.
Yeah.
Like commit euthanasia.
Yeah.
But yet, like the state isn't allowed to kill you if you do something as heinous as kill 3 little girls.
Yeah, it's almost like it kind of sums up the world we live in. We have these woke left-wing governments. When you talk about death row, it almost sounds like inhumane. But it's not just like you're picking some random person to die. It's like someone who's committed heinous acts. And that's where I believe America's got it right. And actually in Asia, they have it everywhere. I think it's very, Japan is... Theirs is a brutal system, man. Japan is like, that's a modern, society. It's like very much like the world that we live in. And Japan is their death row is mental torture. Do you know how it works there?
No, I don't.
No, it's like, so in America, you could be on death row for 10, 20 years. And then in America, you get your date, right? And you can kind of like try and push it back and try and plea it, etc. until you can't. But you'll always have your date of when you're going to be executed. In Japan, you're on death row. And no one tells you, just get a knock at the door one day and then you're gone. So every day that you live could be your last. So it's just like mental torture that you just wake up not knowing that what day is going to be your last. And then one day you're just taken to be hung and that's it. You're gone.
It's insane. And especially here in, obviously in Indonesia as well.
Yeah.
You have the infamous sort of Bali 9, I think it was.
Yeah.
Australian citizens that were sentenced to death, or maybe like quite a few.
That was like drug trafficking, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, 2 of them actually died, but 2 of them were actually executed. The other ones, I think one just got released like a month ago, 2 months ago.
Wow.
And after like 20 years of him being in jail in prison in Bali, he gets back to Australia And you know what happened to him? He got arrested again because he had a carjacking thing in Australia prior to when he went away in prison in Indonesia.
No way.
He got back. He got lifted for a carjacking thing from like 25 years ago. So he was like, I'm free, and he used to go like serve like another few months in Australia just because of that.
Probably a bit of an upgrade though, like prison in Australia compared to prison in Bali.
Yeah.
I'd probably say that's at least in the step in the right direction, right?
No, exactly.
But
man, moving on to some other stuff, man. There's been a Telegraph report, and to be fair, you've done a bit of a deep dive into it, haven't you? With regard to the immigration stats, with regard to the UK, obviously the Telegraph releasing something this morning, which is pretty damning, if I say so myself.
So yeah, that is correct, Dan. So there's been the latest sort of immigration statistics have been released by the Home Office for the year sort of June last year to June this year. And the figures are quite damning, you know. Labour are sort of trying to twist it in a way that's like, oh, we're up kind of 10% on this and 20% on that. But if you actually dive into the statistics are still very, very worrying. So in terms of how they describe irregular arrivals, which again is this like European language and how they're describing illegal people coming. So they said 62,000 grants of leaves via safe and legal routes to come to or stay in the UK. That's apparently down 33% year on year, but that is only for safe and legal routes. That doesn't include small boat crossings. Over 7,400 refugees resettled. 88% are from the Afghan resettlement program. And now in terms of irregular arrivals, we've had 49,000 irregular arrivals.
Wait, Dom, let's sort that language out there. Irregular. Illegal, right?
Sorry.
The comment section is going to be on to you big time for saying that. You can't be brainwashed and out by the major media.
I'm getting like propagandized live on air. This is crazy.
Illegal.
49,000 illegal arrivals detected. Detected is in quote marks as well. Up 27% since the previous year. So that's key. 43,000 small boat arrivals, accounting for 88% of illegal arrivals. Up 38% since the previous year, just for small boat crossings. And again, Afghans made up 15% of the small boat arrivals. They're the most common nationality. In terms of just asylum as well, over 111,000 people claimed asylum. That's up 14% since the previous year and almost doubled since 2021. So again, this is the trend line we're seeing. It's not getting better, it's getting worse at a fast rate.
The Labour are flexing that the deportations are higher as well. Is that true, or is there any truth in that?
That is correct. So I will get on to the deportation statistics. When you use percentages, they can be morphed in very weird ways. You know, if you have a low number to begin with and you add 1,000 to the deportations, okay, well, you're up 15%. So half of asylum seekers arrived via, again, they use irregular routes. They're illegal. Like, they keep using this terminology. It's annoying.
It's a psyop.
It is. Over 37% of claimants previously arrived on visa. So that's people coming to the country legally and then obviously getting rid of their documents or claiming asylum once they're in the UK from like an EasyJet flight. Which again is very tricky. Because how are these people coming in on a visa, on a travel visa or a work visa, and then switching it and claiming asylum? Doesn't make any sense. There's 71,000 cases that are waiting an initial decision, and that's also relating to 91,000 people. That's down 18% since the previous year. So in that case, they're getting through the cases more. But again, that's quite worrying because we might see them kind of be pushing more people through and accepting more people in order to get these statistics down. So in the settlement and citizenship part, that talks about people who have come here legally. But one of the key points of this is that 17% of settlement granted to those with refugee status or other forms of protection. That's out of 163,000. So we're seeing a lot of people being settled and given UK citizenship from the asylum system, from the irregular immigration system. and 257,000 citizenship grants. That's up 4%. So again, not only is illegal immigration a massive problem, but legal immigration is still super high. Every single step of the way, the UK public has voted for less immigration, not only legal but illegal. And it's just not the case. That's not the way the things are going. Now, this is the key part here. So detained under immigration. So there's 22,000 people entered detention, up 14% since the previous year. That's people who are on like temporary statuses and visas who have been jailed. Albanians are the most common nationality to be imprisoned. That's also since 2022.
What's happening in Albania?
I think it's just the people.
No, but I'm just saying what's happening in Albania as to why they're coming over to our country.
Oh, that's a great question, man. I have no idea.
Well, they're illegal as well, right? These are legal migrants as well, the Albanians. Are they legal?
Yeah. So these are people on like temporary visas and stuff.
What's going on over there?
I know, but they're still not getting deported, they're still...
Albania's a new holiday destination, man.
Yeah, but well, they come over here to sell drugs.
Yeah.
They're here to make money, I guess. Now, numbers returned from the UK. So this is the part which is Labour is flexing. So only 9,100 enforced returns. That's up 25% since the previous year. But so obviously Labour are going to say, yeah, we've deported 25% more people year on year. Yeah, but the number's seriously low when you compare it to, the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that have already come here through legal, illegal, and sort of refugee status systems. So Albanians are the most common nationality to be deported, probably because of their high crime rate. And 5,300 foreign national prisoners returned. Again, that's up 16% since the previous year. But, again, 25%, 16%, when you look at percent...
It sounds good, but it's not good when you look at the numbers at all. It's really, really bad. But it just shows how bad the Tories were as well. So, but the numbers are going up. And if you reflect that, actually, to be fair, with the numbers going up, and what they're saying, the 25%, was it 4,000 or something like that?
The 25%, so that's up to 9,140 returns. But Dan, here's the key point. So illegal arrivals are up 27%, yet enforced returns are only up 25%.
Yeah.
So the situation is actually way worse. And if you think about the 27%, we're at 50,000 illegal arrivals in 1 year. So that 27% jump is a massive difference. That's 10,000, increase in illegals, yet they're only decreased as a total of about 50,000, yet they're only deporting about 9,100 people.
Yeah.
So there's a massive discrepancy there.
So the numbers don't look good at all then, basically. But we're going to hear nothing. We're not going to hear the end of it. It's like, have you seen the report this week? We have deported 25% more than the previous government.
Yeah,
that's what they're just going to do. So they're going to be ignoring everything else and just be talking about what they've done, but it's nothing. It's actually nothing. And it's important for people to see that because it isn't nothing. Percentages don't tell the full story. Yes, statistically they have, but it's nothing. It's minuscule. It's nothing. It's fairy dust. It's nothing.
Exactly. You can kind of warp that data in any single way in order to
that's what they'll continue to do.
A dialogue. And, I've read Yvette Cooper's kind of a summary of it. And obviously she starts with, we inherited a broken immigration and asylum system from the previous government.
They made it worse.
Yeah, they definitely made it worse. It's what she talks about as well is sort of creating a new asylum reforms later in this year. But I'm scared this means they're going to be fast tracking asylum seekers. So then on paper, they have less asylum seekers that are waiting for claims. But when you actually look at the statistics, just because they're getting accepted at a higher rate and getting through the system at a higher rate, then they're citizens and then they can go on to sort of standardized benefits, which again, British nationals are very far down the list in terms of the actual percent of British nationals that are on benefits.
Yeah.
For example, you look at sort of Somali immigrants who come here legally, 71% of Somali immigrants are on benefits.
Yeah.
Like, how is that fair?
It's not fair at all. Is that...
Yeah, so we do have a couple other people as well. Nigel Farage says, under Labour, we now have record numbers claiming asylum, which is true. The vast majority should never qualify, and most will cost the taxpayer huge sums of money. Our streets are becoming more dangerous, yet this disaster gets worse. And obviously, you've got the Conservatives who now know exactly how to solve the issue, even though they have 14 years in power, saying that, we need to leave the ECHR, the asylum hotels are increasing, people arriving illegally are up 47%. So obviously it's very easy to say this from the sidelines, but, I just don't believe anything the Conservatives say. They had 14 years to solve this issue, even especially from 2016 elections when we got rid of when we had Brexit. We voted for that to maintain our sovereignty and decrease immigration. And yet we're still sort of governed by this the European law, which obviously has crazy loopholes.
Well, just to be devil's advocate, though, on that Conservative point, would you be open to the idea that, well, that was the old guard, and now there's the new guard in town, and the new guard didn't actually have the direct decision-making during this 14-year where they did nothing, and now the new guard you get what I mean by the new guard? The new guard are now got new policies, and now they're in positions where they can actually make change. Do you see that, or is that just you just don't trust them all, the party?
Yeah, I just think that's a little bit kind of weak.
Yeah.
In terms of an actual argument, if they get back into power now, is it going to take another 14 years in order to actually implement what they want into society? They were voted in 3 consecutive elections here, and they were voted because they campaigned on lower immigration. And at every step of the way, immigration increased, asylum seekers increased. So, they can say what they like. It's so easy to come on the outside looking in. But if they were given power for such a long time and nothing changed, it didn't even change. It got worse, Dan. It got worse at every step. So I just think they're just talking nonsense here. Yeah. And I think there's obviously a rise in a lot of these other right parties as well, with Reform and with Advance, who have opened the Overton window. And what that means is they're campaigning, and they've got a lot of popularity from principled state statues like leaving the ECHR. So obviously Conservatives are going to take a leaf out of their book.
Just copy him.
And copy them, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Because you're speaking about immigration, have you seen that clip of I think he's Somalian, but one of the guys that was at the Bell Hotel, sort of pleading for a second chance, if you will. Shall we watch the video and react?
Sure.
How was it being in the hotel when you saw the violence outside and the protesting?
Yeah, scary. Like, that's the only word to describe it. Scary. Nowadays it's a bit calm, but in the beginning it was so violent. A lot of guys took some beating, in the beginning. It's scary. Now it's just it's an emotional thing now rather than a physical thing. It's just painful, emotionally painful now.
Have you got a message to the residents of Epping and the local area?
Yeah, I would say please give us a second chance. Please treat us the same way you treated us before the incident, because we are the same people. Before the incident, you didn't view us as criminals or anything. You were okay with us before the incident took place. We are the same people. One person doesn't change us. What one person does not, represent us or what we are. That's what I want to say to them.
And a message about having to move. Do you want to move?
Please, I say, please don't move us, because if you move us, everyone else will want to do the same to us.
Right, I've got 2 things to say on this point, Don, mate. Firstly, the mainstream media have this moment, right? They have an exclusive interview that they're dubbing it as. They asked, it almost seems like a bit of a psyop, almost like getting the violin out and, again, looking to try and emotionally blackmail the British citizens. And so please give us a second chance and all these kind of things. There was no first chance in the first place. He came in illegally, firstly. But also my problem with ITV running this interview, why don't they ask them the questions that everybody wants to know? Why did you come through 8 safe countries to get to this country? Oh, because you're a grifter. You're an economic migrant. You want to get economic benefits for yourself. You're not escaping persecution. You came through 8 safe countries looking for the best one in particular. So why don't they ask this question? Why did you come to the UK? Why was it the UK that you wanted to come to? And I always wanted to know the golden question. Where is the women and children? Why is it always men in these hotels? But they had their moment. They had a few minutes with them and didn't ask these questions that I wanted to see. But I smell a bit of a psyop. I smell Let's get the violin out. Let's try and emotionally blackmail the British people and call it a second chance. There was no first chance. And does that girl that allegedly got sexually assaulted outside the hotel get a second chance?
No.
No, she doesn't. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that interview, but it pisses me off and it smells like a bit of a psyop.
Yeah, I just feel like they had to like go through every single person in that hotel. It's like, right, who can actually speak English here?
Yeah.
And then pick the best one. You know, they give him emotionally charged questions and answers, and it's only 2 minutes long, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're just asking these dumb questions, like a second chance. You're right. The people of Epping never voted to give them the first chance in the first place. They were forced against their will. You know, they had corrupt hotel owners getting contracts with the Home Office in order to facilitate these illegal invaders. They have no first chance to begin with. And that is the point that we're protesting on. We're protesting because it's against our will.
Yeah.
It's against the British public.
Well, this guy's making out that there was a chance. So I don't know what he's been told, you know, about him coming illegally and that he had a chance here. He shouldn't have a chance. He should have been gone. They should know. This is what I'm saying. So he's seeing as he's had they have a chance to be thinking, treat us the way you did before the incident happened. I bet the people didn't even know you were there. That's why there was the outrage was there. No one has voted to say, yeah, let's let these guys in. Let's let these people into the hotels. No one has said, yes, let's do this. They've just been forced upon different areas. Now he's saying, yeah, we don't want to move, as if he's just settled into Epping and he's now one of the residents there and a pillar to the community. Yeah, he may be individually a good guy. You never know that. I'm not saying that every individual inside a hotel is a bad guy. Would be wrong to say that. It would be, because not every single one, but there's a good majority of those individuals that are freaking a threat to our society, and they should be dealt with and be deported. You know, there shouldn't be this. I get frustrated every week talking about it, but they shouldn't be here. They've come in illegally, should be in a detention center and out the door and deported, and that's what they should be happening.
Exactly. And I feel like they're just trying to personalize the issue. And like, the thing is, it's not a personal issue. Like, I don't personally have something against this guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, because he's just making the most of a corrupt system to begin with.
Yeah.
The point being is you have to be principled. You cannot show people empathy who break the law and who come here to grift and to economically benefit and also culturally dominate the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
We cannot give these people an inch because they'll take a mile. And again, this guy might be a nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know him. No one knows him. This is just a weak ploy to personalize these people. Oh, please give us a second chance. One guy doesn't represent us. It's not one guy. It's a countrywide issue.
Well, there's 30-odd thousand that are here. And yeah, as you said, they probably articulated and picked probably the best one to represent. So he's like, yeah, he speaks English very well. Credit to him. He speaks English very well. And that's a false representation of the individuals inside the hotel, because most of them don't speak English. So yeah, they plucked him out that can speak English. He might be articulating well, and he might have good intentions, this guy. He might do, but he's coming the wrong way, and we shouldn't be looking at it like that. He needs to go out, and if he wanted to really come in, if he really wanted to, he has to do it the legal route. But unfortunately, we're full at this moment in time. There is no space for legal route. But that's a conversation for another day. But I don't like the way that we're being psyoped here, or they're trying to emotionally manipulate the rest of the UK, the UK, and trying to say, look at him. Look at this guy's face. Look at the way he speaks. Do you think he's like that?
Yeah.
You think he's like that?
You guys are being mean to him.
Yeah.
Oh, what? You made him scared. He feels scared now because you're outside protesting. Oh, before it was physical, we had some people beat up, which again, I never saw any reports of. I feel like if there was an actual migrant illegal in this hotel that was beat up, that would be frontline news. That's exactly what they wanted. But
exactly.
I never saw any reports of that. And now it's all emotional. Oh, it's all... It is. It's fluff, mate. It's weak.
And you saw that guy was walking into people's houses. As I said, I keep on saying, I don't want to speak too highly of the guy. I don't know this guy, but he's the best representation that they pulled out there. But a lot of them are like that freak that was walking into that woman's house. He looked freaking evil. And again, I don't like to judge a book by its cover, so to speak, but that guy looked like he had no emotion whatsoever. He was like a zombie. That guy, again, he was like when he was being detained by the police, he looked scary, man.
Yeah, you could probably blow out a candle through his ears. I don't think there's anything going on in his head other than kind of just, let's try and get into this house.
Yeah, exactly. He had nothing to thingy. But on the hotel protests, anyway, of course, this interview came after the High Court ruling, and of course, it was a victory for Epping. We touched upon it in the last episode. And yeah, now, of course, where does this push Labour now into? Because I said in the last episode that people were going to see what happened in Epping and go, you know what? It works. If we protest, it works. So people are going to be, feel a bit of, enthusiasm to carry on these protests because they do work. But will this push Labour into a corner and go, well, where the hell do we put them? Because if we take them there and put them there, then they're going to be outraged.
Yeah.
But this is where I was thinking a little bit deeply. These talks about HMOs. Whilst we have these hotels, people know where these people are. So you can have a protest. But what happens when you have a town and HMOs everywhere and you just sprinkle them about? There is no protest to be had. You just take the people, sprinkle them around the town. No one knows. They're just in there. There's not a group of them where you can go, this is where everybody lives. They're just infiltrated around the local town. One in here, one in 29, one up at 45, one at 62, and that's my fear. That's what's going to happen, because they're going to be like, right, the Labour government are like, well, we don't actually want to stop the problem, because if we want to stop the problem, we could have stopped it ages ago. Right, hotel, it's not working. It's causing too much for us. Let's sprinkle them. And I think that would have a huge detriment. It'd actually be even worse, because we know where they are now, the hotel. But when you have them in there, this is when they go, well, how did you know that guy was an asylum seeker living in this house? They can manipulate the headlines a little bit if a sexual assault happened. Oh, no, this guy was just a Somalian, or this was just an Afghani who lives in a house. He lives here. He's not from a hotel. And then all of a sudden you can hide things, manipulate things a little bit better and hide them and stop these protests.
You're right. It's definitely harder to pinpoint. And especially with hotels, is that these hotels have taken contracts with the Home Office because they were public and now they're not. So, and if they're still operating, you can go to the hotels, you can physically check them out, you can walk the premise, you can see the people in there. Okay, right, you've got a massive hot spot, between 30 and 100 in there. And that's a point of contention for the local community. But you're right, if they're in sort of a house of 5, a house of 4, and they're just sprinkled about the sort of the society, it's very hard to pinpoint that. And that's why I think you're going to see a massive increase in HMOs in the next couple of years. I feel like they're going to solve the hotel problem and shut the hotels down, but just replace it with this.
So the boats will still be coming, and then they'll just be integrated into society. And as I said, I think that's even more dangerous. It really is, especially for the knowledge on, say, these things happen. And again, I always have to say this because we're on a podcast. Not everyone is committing crime, but the ones that do commit crime, then it's harder to really say. It's not the migrant from the hotel. It's this guy who lived at 29, and then they can create fake. Well, how do you know he was an illegal migrant? You can't talk about it because it's a contempt of court case. You can't talk about who he was. They won't release the details of the guy. It would just be name, and then you won't be able to say, oh, was he illegal? Was he not illegal? Was he just a guy?
Yeah.
Was he a guy who lived there for 10 years, 15 years? That's the way they'll dress it up. And then all of a sudden, you don't really know who these people are.
You're right. You always see this in the headline, British man arrested. And it's like Mohammed Akbarid is the supposed British man who's just been arrested. Like, come on, mate. Who you fooled it?
Yeah.
The same thing happened in some place. I think it was like Eastern Europe somewhere.
It was like abroad, wasn't it? It was like, it was like headline, 3 Brits arrested for sexually assaulting a woman or something like that. And then all of a sudden you dive into the thing and Mohammed Akbarid, and you got blimmin' Punjab and all these kind of things. Yeah, all these kind of names, and you're like, what?
Hold on a second. Just
hold up. Take us back a little bit. Like, that doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. But so that's where we could go down. We could go down a bit of a dark route with the hotels.
I think you're right. Obviously, sort of staying on that point is what I mentioned before. Kemi Badenoch has written to all Tory councils, urging them to take legal action over the illegal migrant hotels in their area. So the framework has been set for Epping. Epping is now the trailblazer for what many, many different councils across the UK are going to be doing. They're going to be taking these to the High Court. Really, the sovereignty of these hotels should be within the councils and the local councils, because at the end of the day, it's their citizens, it's their constituents that are going to be affected most by these hotels.
But what would be interesting? As I said, the councils are all led by, either Reform, Conservatives or whatnot. Why don't Labour stick them in their council areas? And then we'll fastly see Labour thinking that, why aren't they all in our place? And then all you're going to see these Labour strongholds be like, oh my God, and then all of a sudden they're going to turn as well.
Yeah, well, that's obviously one of the issues with the voting as well. So, like, Labour are on a massive push in order to get so many people naturalised as citizens, because they know that, you know, if, for example, if you're an illegal and you come into a Labour council and they're very nice to you, they give you all these HMOs and hotels, you're probably going to vote for them, aren't you?
No, yeah.
And they're given the same voting rights as British citizens.
Are they actually? Is that no? Honestly, I did not know that. How long does it take for you to be able to vote? You have to be a British citizen to vote.
When you're a naturalised British citizen,
which takes about 5 years, surely.
Yeah, but this is the thing. They're going to speed up. They talked about obviously bringing massive reforms to the asylum system. So what that means in my mind is that it's the exact same playbook the Democrats were using in the previous election. They want to bring in millions and millions of illegals. They want to deport. They want to sort of put them in all these, like, for example, America. They want to put them in these conservative areas. Yeah, sorry, Republican areas, and they want to be able to switch the vote because they know they're going to vote Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quite good move for them. I mean, it's a massive detriment on the country, and I suppose in America's sake, thank God that's stopped. But you know, it's still 4 years to conjure up a master plan here by Labour, and this is what they're doing now, playing a bit of chess.
You're right; it's fraudulent, and if in my opinion, it's treasonous.
It is.
Because, you know, these people should not be given any voting rights at all. If you're on an asylum claim, or you've just been naturalised as a citizen, there should be a massive leeway before you actually start to get to vote, to have the same vote. Because remember, for every one person that gets naturalised, that will it will stop another person, another British citizen, from voting. It equalises the vote.
Yeah.
You know, cancels it out. So they're on a massive push right now to get as many people in because they know this will benefit them in the next election.
Yeah, that's wild. Absolutely wild. Operation Raise the Colour. We've been speaking about that. Operation Raise the Colours. We've been speaking about that a lot in the last episode. What did you make of, again, I'm bringing him up again. He's as a Tory, I suppose. But what did you make of Mr. Jenrick? Going out and getting involved, of course, and pinning flags to the lamppost, where Labour governments and Reform are sort of demonising people for doing this. Of course, we've seen massive amounts of uproar and councils taking the flags down, and even a Reform council sort of begrudged the people spraying the roundabouts with into the England flag. But you're seeing an MP almost being a bit of a rogue, if you like, and joining in.
It's crazy, right? Because I've been around London a lot of times, and the amount of like pride flags they have as crossings and just plastered all over the city is insane. And that's obviously commissioned by the council, yet you're not allowed to put the English flag, the flag of our nation, you know, on these roundabouts and crosswalks and on the lampposts. You know, I like Robert getting his hands dirty here. I feel like it's principle. And, you know, you're only ever going to get pushback from people who are offended by our culture. Like, I've actually seen a lot of people from migrant backgrounds. They're like, cool, yeah, fly your flag, it's all good. But like, it's not about them. It's about the people who are against it. It's almost like a sort of game theory kind of strategy here. Like, we're doing it to see who is against it, if that makes sense. And then if we know who's against it, we know who our enemies are.
Yeah, but we can go on like a tangent for ages and talk about the UK. We were not allowed to be proud of our flags, which is so crazy in itself, really is. But as you said there with London, you always see like LGBT flags, you know, chucked up there. And again, we can go on a tangent and talk about where that propaganda came from, probably in the exclusive content. Yep. The Patreon is coming very, very soon, where we can go a little bit deeper into certain subjects. So yeah, I mean, that would take up a whole episode talking about that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, as you were saying, as you spiked my memory. I remember when I was living in London. I think it's by sort of Piccadilly Circus. And have you been around there?
I have, yeah.
On the traffic lights, right? There's like these male, female, like logos and like trans things as like the green light to walk across the road. So they replace like the green walking man with like I don't know,
is it the trans symbol?
The trans symbol.
Yeah.
So it's like you could be anywhere. So you can't have a man to dictate that you're walking across the road. It has to be, well, we don't know if you're a man. You could be a lady / horse / man / freaking ghost or whatever you want to be. And it was this logo. So it was like that sort of crap is allowed to be there, and you can't even fly a flag without being called to racist. And do you know who does my nutting? My nutting. Have you heard this Narinder Kaur lady?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
my
my
God,
God,
she
horrible.
does my absolute nutting. I don't know what she is. I don't know where she's from. I think she has an immigrant background. I'm sure she was born in the UK. Yeah, she has like an immigrant background, and she was there like on the protests, the anti-protests of these hotel things, and video and saying, look at them. Do these look like killers and rapists to you? Like, let them in, let them all in. But she's so demonizing on the flag of St. George's and the Union Jack. She literally calls it a racist flag. Again, I don't know her full background. I think she's a second generation immigrant,
Yeah.
but she literally sits in a position. I don't know how she gets invited onto these talk shows, but she literally sits there and says how racist the flag is. This should not be happening. How can you sit in a country and actually say that? How can you say that a flag of a country shouldn't be allowed to be flown?
Yeah, it's horrible. So she is a Pakistani immigrant.
Oh, you know a bit about her, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So, there was quite famous videos of Tommy Robinson on her talk show maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Talking about the rise of the sort of grooming gangs. And then Tommy was saying how he's had death threats and he's had people come to his house and he's been sort of assaulted. And then she goes, well, that hasn't happened to me because I'm a nice person.
Oh,
And then it's funny because she actually left Islam. So she's no longer a Muslim.
oh, she refuted it. Oh, okay, right.
And then she has had death threats. And she was on air talking about the death threats that she had received. And Tommy was like, okay, if you leave Islam, what would happen to you? And he was saying this 10 years ago. And then maybe 7 or 8 years later, this woman's coming out in saying, oh, she's had so horrible death threats. And, she's had every single vile comment given to her. Well, it's like, yeah, but you were belittling Tommy for predicting that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. And she just has these all these talking points, and she just recites the same old bullshit. It's oppressive, it's racist, it's part of an old agenda. I think it doesn't represent the community. It represents far right thugs. They're just trying to demonize our pride and our history. And I think it's quite weak. And it doesn't have any sort of standing, because again, the silent majority of Britain is standing up in defiance of people like this, and they no longer give in to this bullshit ideology where we're sort of psyoped into not wanting to be proud of our history. And that's kind of like the first way you take over a country without, putting troops on the ground, is you want them to be so disconnected from their history and disconnected from their culture that any other culture that comes in dominates us. So this is the first part. We need to put our feet in the ground, and we need to say, no, we are proud to be British. And this is what this raising the flags movement is.
Yeah, I like it. Robert Jenrick, what are your thoughts on him? As I said, you just spoke about that you don't trust the Tories. What do you think of him individually?
Yeah, obviously, it's one of those where you can't trust a party. I think individuals, obviously are more trustworthy than others.
But I think Robert, he resigned from his position in the Tories and then went to the backbenchers and then was campaigning for and then joined back with the party after the sort of new guard arrived. Do you think he needs to leave the Tories and go somewhere else?
I think he'd be better off somewhere else.
Because I think he's got a lot, and a lot of people again don't trust the Tories as the brand as such. But I think a part of any brand, you can have good people a part of a team, and I think if he went somewhere else, I think a lot of people would really get behind him. I think I can see him as a leader. I really can see him as the leader of this. I love Rupert Lowe, but I don't think Rupert Lowe has the ambitions right now to sort of do that. But yeah. I think Robert's young as a politician sort of thing. He's also a part of the club in a way. He's a public school. Talks well. Sometimes for some reason in the UK we kind of, well, we don't, but to be in these positions of power, you kind of have to have that right education and went to the right places. But he's not someone that could be taught, gaslighted into being, he's a far right thug because he speaks like one of them. He's educated where they're from. So he has good standing with that. I think he could be a really good leader, but probably needs to think about potentially jumping ship at some point. And Advance could be if they start to grow something with Rupert Lowe, Robert Jenrick, that could be a really attractive proposition, I think.
I think you're right. There's a couple of points I want to talk about on that. The first one is sort of a catch-22. is that, you know, if you actually just fill parties like Advance with ex-Tory members, how much change are we actually going to see?
True.
You know, and with like people like Robert Jenrick, they all go to the same boarding school. I think it's like 60 or between 60 and 80% of all of the MPs in the Houses of Parliament went to the same school.
What, Eton was it?
I think it was Eton,
was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that, but I have seen statistics on that. They all go to the same school. They're all educated in the same way. They're all from the same place. So it'd just be interesting to see if he does sort of bide his time here, because he might just be sort of biding his time to see where the sort of public support is right now. Obviously, we see massive support for Reform, but Reform's memberships are dropping day by day.
Yeah.
People are going to Advance in the tens of thousands. We already see Advance nearly hit the 30,000 in order to participate in like an actual political party. That's going to be massive because they can start getting, you know, councillors and people running in elections, which is going to be pretty big. So yeah, maybe he, obviously, again, we've got, you know, 3 years and 10 months into the next election.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of time to sort of run this through. We're going to have to see how it goes.
Yeah, but I just wanted to, well, as I said, what are your thoughts on him though?
I like what he does. I like what he does outside of politics as well, in terms of obviously going to Calais and doing these like on the ground sort of boots in action interviews and reporting as well, this sort of investigative journalism that he's doing. Again, I like it. I'm not seeing a lot of obviously Tory members do the same thing as him. You know, you're seeing a lot of Tory members not participate in raising flags,
doing stuff like that.
Yeah, Chris Philp. Obviously, we saw Kemi go to the Epping people as well, the sort of locals there to get interviews and stuff. But I just think it's all quite low hanging fruit. You know? This is obviously massive in the zeitgeist right now. People are talking about this up and down the country. And it's such an easy point for any other party that's not Labour to sort of benefit and look good in the public light. But everything's so unclear right now just because we're so far away from the election. There's so many other opportunities in other parties that, you know, the public are backing. I think someone like Robert Jenrick obviously wants change. I think he's got good intentions. I don't think he's going to get that change with Conservatives. I don't think Conservatives have any chance to get into the election.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to see.
Services should be used elsewhere, probably.
Yeah.
In other stuff, I suppose. I mean, I'll give you the platform. What else did you want to speak about? So we've kind of gone through the things that I had on the list and the running order as such. But
yeah, sure. So there was a video of one of the security guards of these migrant hotels.
Yeah.
And some of the protesters spotted them watching a very interesting video. So if you just want to pull up my document here, so we'll play this. So there were reports that this person, this security guard, was watching beheading videos while on his shift.
Was this the guy who was getting in the van?
That was the guy that was getting in the van. It was reported to the locals, and then he was obviously arrested for that. But yeah, he was basically exposed by locals for watching beheading videos. And I think that goes into like this lack of sort of cultural ideology that we share with these people. I mean, how can this person be watching beheading videos, probably ISIS-style beheading videos, while also sort of maintaining security for an invasive force of people? It's very worrying.
Was this guy British?
No, he wasn't British.
Oh, because I was going to play the devil's advocate with you, Dom. I always do. I like to give a people an opinion. I've seen those kind of videos before. I mean, they kind of like when I was in the military, people would kind of send them in the WhatsApp group chats. I didn't watch it, but people would watch it and they were in the military, like, I suppose getting angry over it. If they got sent, especially at that time. So maybe he just got sent in the group chat and was watching it.
Okay, but if you're watching like Christians behead, ISIS people, or stuff like that, I guess that's a different argument. It's whether you're doing it for the entertainment factor, which personally I don't see any entertainment.
No, there's no entertainment factor.
I think it's incredibly worrying.
You've been in a boys group chat though. Some of the videos you probably get sent into the old group chat is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right there. Obviously, you can't play devil's advocate about it, but at the end of the day, there's clearly a lack of social sort of ideologically or ideology that we share with these people. And I feel like, if they're also facilitating endangering their local communities by defending these people, and to be fair, a lot of the security guards and actual staff at the hotel are immigrants that they hire for these positions. So, I feel like something like this, especially when we don't know the history of these people, who they are, what they do, where they come from, and they're sort of being entertained by these things, I feel like it's a little bit shocking. So, obviously they did the right thing and arrested him. But yeah,
I've seen something else in your chat in the Google Doc you gave me. It was locals in South Birmingham catch a lefty tearing down the flag. The police up entertaining the lefty. Shall we have a little watch of this one?
Yeah, this is a great video.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What am I doing? You're a burglar. Yeah, you're a burglar. Fuck off. Don't tell me to fuck off.
What have you got in you?
What are you doing? Burgling houses? No, I'm not burgling houses.
You're putting
What are
something
you doing?
in the
You
house.
are.
What's in there?
We've got a lot of burglars
What's
in this
this?
area. What are you doing?
Why are you doing this? This isn't your property.
Well, there you go.
This isn't
You
your
can have it
property.
back.
Well,
What do you
that's
think you're
theft.
doing?
That's theft.
What do you think you're doing?
What do I think I'm doing?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Well, who are you?
What are you doing walking around with ladders? In the village?
Phone the police.
Stealing.
Yeah, phone the police.
Stealing.
Yeah, phone the police.
What? Where are you from?
Huh? Well, who are you from?
Where are you from?
Where are you from?
We asked you first. You're the one here
Okay, well,
suspicious
phone the
with
police.
ladders in our area.
What are you doing?
Phone the police then.
What are you doing?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's great to see the old Bill actually doing something for a change. But do you know what? Before you even, these guys that he's obviously, I think British, I suppose the guy who's taking these flags down, but they all look the same, those guys, don't they? They're all limp-wristed men, aren't they? They're really like a little bit weird. You can tell that they're like that.
Yeah, a bit frail,
Yeah,
quite weak in the
frail.
voice as well. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing? Where are you from? Protecting my thing. But yeah, good to see the police actually lifting him, because that is burglary.
It's true. And it's the same with the council as well. The council were fucking...
Who's that? Sorry, quickly. That guy. He's just there at the back getting...
Oh, it's brilliant.
I love that. Yeah, it's good.
It is brilliant. Don't call the police. No, mate, you're literally robbing flags. That's other people's properties. I just don't get it. Like, who the hell is this guy
Yeah.
to take down his own British flag? He's clearly a British citizen.
Yeah.
He's clearly a little bit sort of like, I don't know, propagandized.
Loves the BBC.
Yeah, loves BBC, mate.
Loves Hugh Edwards as well, by the looks of things.
Yeah, you could. That's a little bit of a. I think that has multiple meanings in it, like BBC.
Yeah. So... yeah, but... yeah, I mean, they're complicit. He's choosing his side, and he's literally fighting against his own people, which is really frightening.
Do you reckon he'd do this with Palestine flags?
Nah, would he fuck? He would be putting them up all the time. He'd love the Palestine flags, Yeah. No, he's kind of about with his BBC shirt. I love BBC.
Yeah.
And I love BBC merchandise, and he's definitely the guy who like calls up grasses on his neighbours and like, do you know the person at 31 doesn't pay his TV license? He's like ratting them in and stuff like that. He's like, he's not a good. You can tell he's not good fun on a night out.
No,
You can put it that way. He's.
I think he's got something quite sort of deeply wrong with him if he wants to go out in the middle of the night on his own accord and take down British flags.
Yeah, what a weird bloke, man. What a weird man. But he's complicit and he's chose his side.
Yeah.
Of the battle, and that's where he wants to stand. He's on the wrong side of history, unfortunately. But yeah, this other thing here, again, I suppose, Jewish tourists seen removing Christian cross from UK hotspot before replacing it with the Star of David. Thoughts on that?
Well, this is based in Llandudno, which is actually quite local to where my dad lives. I've been there a lot of times. This cross was there for over 50 years.
Wow.
And it was obviously the cross, the Christian cross there. You can see a lot of other like sort of names and symbols and whatever. But yeah, these sort of Jewish tourists are taking this cross, the rocks that make up the cross, and they're making a Star of David.
Yeah.
I really am opposed to that. I'm really opposed to that. I don't know why they're vandalizing, you know, our sort of right to express our national sort of Christianity and our right to sort of religious expression here. This is clearly a very historic sort of landmark for Llandudno as well. It's sort of cementing their place and their sort of culture within Christianity.
Yeah.
And, you know, these tourists, these Israeli tourists are just completely vandalizing it and making a Star of David. I can't think for any reason why you do that. I wouldn't go to Israel and do, you know, take down synagogues.
Yeah. No, look, listen, I mean, people I seem to think on the right side of politics right now seem to think that, that you choose a side. This is the same people that would be outraged if that was turned into the Star and Crescent.
Yeah.
If that was the Star and Crescent and they're defacing the cross, they'd be absolutely outraged. And I think the outrage should be shown there. They're still disrespecting a religion, they're disrespecting a cross. And I think, again, I'm a big supporter of Tommy Robinson, but I don't think I've seen that on his X profile, and that's nothing against him. But what I'm saying is, guys, you can't just because you might have one problem with one religion, but unfortunately that's disrespect towards Christianity.
You're right.
And I'm not going to be taken. I don't give two tosses on who it is. The UK is a Christian nation, and that should not be defaced. That should not be happening, and we should always be outraged by that. It's not just about one religion or the thing. You're coming into the UK and criminalizing, damaging something, as you said, that's been there for 50 years, defacing it and putting another religion on that. It's diabolical.
It is. And, it can't be one rule for one rule for another.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're right. We are a Christian nation here. This isn't a Jewish nation.
Yeah.
Although we have a long history and sort of relationship with the Jewish community, that doesn't give them any right. It doesn't give them a single right to deface our Christian monuments.
Yeah.
Especially when it's been, in a deep-hearted Christian community. It's been there for 50 years. What gives them the right to just deface that and to make their own sort of Star of David? I think it's horrible.
No, I think, and I think this, as I said, it's a sensitive subject on this side of the thing, but you're here on a podcast, guys. We don't give a shit. To be perfectly honest, what I mean? We're Britain first. We're not Israel. We don't fly Israel flags and all that sort of stuff here on this podcast. We're Britain first. We're about British values and traditions here on this channel, unfortunately, and this is way overstepping the mark. And I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to call out the bullshit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Obviously, they were clearly Israelis as well, because they had the sort of traditional keepers as well. So yeah, obviously after the video surfaced, the locals went to restore the stones back to their original position, and then by the weekend the cross was sort of fully intact. But again, where's the media outrage around this? Where are these sort of right-wing people standing up to this type of
but that's what I'm saying. I think there is a really as I said, I think I'm not going to voice all my beliefs here on this podcast episode. That'll be later on for the Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, it's coming soon. I'm teasing you a lot here. Yes, there's a lot of anticipation for the Patreon. We're going to be diving into a lot of different stuff. But yeah, I think the same people that are, I'm not anti anybody. I'm anti people that come into this country and start defacing things and try and rip up the textbook and our values and traditions. And unfortunately, the same people that would be outraged if that was a Star and Crescent, certain individuals, Islamists, for example, that were doing that, would be outraged if it was them doing that. But the same thing has happened, but from Jewish people. This should not happen. And I know a lot of Jewish people probably watch this, maybe, but unfortunately, guys, this is the UK, and you shouldn't be doing that stuff. Shit bust.
It is. And as well, it's good. Obviously, the local community went back and removed the Star of David there and restored it. I think that's obviously good for them.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like there's any respect there.
Yeah.
How can they just completely remove a local sort of a local monument. I just think it's awful.
But boy, guys, people watching this, there should be outrage over this as well. You know, you can't just pick and choose your battles just based on who those individuals are. You might sway your beliefs to a certain side of something, or you might like one religion or not, but they're still coming here and defacing our religious beliefs and still disrespecting the Christianity cross, which should be zero tolerance to in the United Kingdom. So yeah, I mean, we're not afraid to get our hands dirty on this podcast, and we'll call out the bullshit all day long. I don't care.
100%.
Man, have you got anything else, or is that it? I think that will do us for today's episode. A lot covered. We keep on sort of baiting you guys with a lot of stuff that's coming. Me and Dom have been pretty busy. His big birthday bash is coming up this weekend. It's gonna be a good one. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, after kind of a few things, we've got some travel plans. We're coming, of course, to London for the 13th, ready to go for that. But after that, we've just got such big plans for this podcast. It's not going anywhere. We've invested a lot of money in the short sides of things with regard to the clips you're going to be seeing very, very soon on the Clips channel. But the live shows, exclusive content as well. This is an expensive operation, as you can see with the studio and all of these kind of things. But we want to really, do some good stuff with this podcast with guests coming up soon as well.
Exactly, yeah. We also want to be answering your questions every single episode, as well as speaking to you guys on the live show. One of the things we're going to be implementing quite shortly is a bit of a Q&A section at the end of the podcast. So that'll be incorporated into the Patreon and also the members side in YouTube as well. We're very excited. Obviously, we want to open this dialogue to you guys. We want to see what your opinions and what your questions are regarding this. So yeah, stay tuned. We've got a lot of things in the work, but for now we'll call it. Thank you for listening, guys. Take care.
Peace.